A couple of weeks ago, I had a very interesting synchronicity take place. I was scrolling on my Netflix channel, just looking around for stuff, and something popped up. And the movie that popped up was a movie called Get Him to the Greek. It was a movie that was made back in 2010, and it starred our old friend Russell Brand. Um, Now, this was just before, and I mean just before, like a day later, the allegations about Brand came out. So I found it quite intriguing that I was just exposed to this movie again after many years, after having seen it when it came out, um, and enjoyed it and thought it was funny when it came out. And I'm going to go into that more in a second, and my general assessment of the Judd Apatow comedy era, and its significance and in relation to today. But I just thought that was um, just a remarkable thing that should take place, that I should be exposed to this movie in this way. Again, I remembered liking it at the time, and I liked the movie at the time, Get Him to the Greek, because like a lot of the Judd Apatow movies that were put out at that time, there was this kind of, well, I mean, there were a couple different elements. There was like a raucous, anything goes kind of atmosphere to things, kind of crazy hijinks and stuff like that. And in that sense, it wasn't all that much different from the Hangover films, and also not too much different from the Farrelly Brothers movies. There's Something About Mary and the rest, which came a little bit earlier, or started a little bit earlier, but proceeded into the aughts. So there were quite a few movies that were made at around this time that were, crude and raunchy, but also I thought had the virtue of, had a couple of different virtues. One was that they were not politically correct at all. You had characters calling each other faggot all the time, and the racial humor and sexist humor, and there wasn't any of the kind of shaming, school marmish, tisk tisk. How dare you laugh at this? This is a rape apologist kind of storyline. The kind of the kind of critiques, if you want to call them that we commonly hear of comedy today. These movies just seem to all throw that all to the wind, and I thought that was a good thing. I was thankful for that aspect of those movies. But also another interesting thing about the Judd Apatow canon, if you will, was the fact that these movies, I thought, had, in spite of their in spite of their raunchiness and their depiction of immoral behavior and dissolute behavior, degenerate behavior, that there was actually a backbone of moral sense to them. The most striking example of this being The 40-Year-Old Virgin, which came out, I think, in 2005, with Steve Carell just beginning The Office. I think this was like the first season of The Office, so it was not even clear whether The Office was going to be a thing, whether it was going to catch on or not, much less become this comedy sensation, this comedy juggernaut that would last for nearly a decade. But he played the titular. Gotta love that term. Every time I hear it, it brings out the Beavis and Butthead in me. The titular main character, the 40-Year-Old Virgin. And what I thought was interesting about that movie was the fact that while Steve Carell's character had his foibles, he was generally speaking more emotionally healthy and more decent, and more civilized, and just a better guy than all of his friends and workmates, who took it upon themselves to try to get him laid. When they found out that he was 40 years old and hadn't had sex yet, they were all just like, oh my God, that's horrible. We've got to help our friend out. Um, but all of his friends were, again, dissolute, degenerate, um, I mean, not unlikable, but unadmirable sorts of people. And by the time the movie was over, Steve Carell's character had lost his virginity, but had done it the proper way. He met a woman, they fell in love, they got married, and had sex on their wedding night, and that was the way that he lost his virginity. Um, and then immediately afterwards sang "The Age of Aquarius" to conclude the movie. So that just seemed there were so many aspects of that movie that kind of intrigued me at the time, and that I thought were hopeful signs, culturally speaking. Um, that the movies could reach their uh, debauched and degenerate sorts of audiences, and be enjoyed on the level of, like, the comedy party movie or whatever. Um, the get drunk and throw up, and don't and not remember what you did the last couple days, like in The Hangover, like the premise for the Hangover movies. That it could be enjoyed on that level, while it always also had, number one, this seeming, this atmosphere of flinging political correctness to the wind, and also this attitude, or this interesting counterintuitive moral sense. So you you had characters, and getting back to some of the other movies in the Apatow genre. Now, Get Him to the Greek, I don't think was directed by Apatow, but it was produced by him, and it had the Apatow kind of spirit inherent in it. And in that movie, you had Russell Brand playing, wonder of wonders, a dissolute public figure, basically playing himself. Although what I didn't know until recently was that he was, by this time, apparently off the drugs and off the booze, but apparently not off of the sex, which is what's gotten him into a bit of a pickle today. Whatever we make of some of the charges that are being made against him, from that period, and this movie was made during that exact period of his career. But that movie also features, a character who decides to turn it around in the end. That he's made bad choices and made a wreck of his life, and so he becomes, he makes a resolution to do better and to live a better life, for the sake of his friends and his family, and also, as it turns out, his offspring, which we find out he has at the end of the movie. So there was also Superbad. What were some of the other movies that were in the same vein? And it seems like the last of these movies was Bridesmaids, which I think some people might see as the beginning of the end, because it was this, hey, women can be funny, and like most of the cast were women, Um, and but it was just as raunchy, and it was just as uh, uh, you know un-PC as the rest of the Apatow movies. As far that's what I'm remembering, anyway. So it wasn't at all like what came closely after, what came hot on its heels. The Ghostbusters 2016 era and everything that followed, which was more or less the death of comedy. Um, the director of the Hangover movies even said, I just decided I wanted to get out of comedy because everybody was getting offended and writing stuff on Twitter, and people were getting canceled for this, that, or the other thing. So things switched, things flipped in a hurry. And ironic, isn't it, that it was the the end of the Bush era and mostly all of the Obama era that was more laid back about all of this. But once that era ended and the Trump era began, then boy, oh boy, oh boy, you were in trouble if you said the wrong thing or made the wrong kind of joke or whatever. We saw a real shift in the tide at around that time. Now, when I went back and watched a couple of these movies, when I went back and watched Get Him to the Greek again, it wasn't as funny, nearly as funny, or nearly as revelatory, nearly as much of like a, joyfully uninhibited in its comedy. When it came to PC Sacred Cows and all that, I wasn't really as impressed this time around. It still elicited some chuckles, but I didn't. I came to the conclusion that I think I overrated it, and I think I overrated the entire scene. Although I was never like a huge fan of it, even at the time. I just liked those movies and saw something positive in them, culturally speaking. Now, I have since seen the movie Funny People. That's maybe the weirdest of the Judd Apatow canon. That movie features this rather melodramatic, tear-jerking sort of premise, where the main character is this older comedian who gets news that he's likely going to die. He's contracted some kind of blood cancer, not leukemia, but something like it, something more specific. I can't remember what it is, but they're going to put him on this certain type of experimental medications, but it's probably too late at this point. So this guy's dying, and he's an older Gen X comedian, and he takes these young millennials under his wing, more or less, and lets them write jokes for him, and this movie, as I was saying, this kind of gets into more mawkish, sappy, maudlin type of territory, until the moment in the middle, the unexpected moment in around the middle of the film, where he finds out he's actually going to be okay. And a small chance that, oops, spoiler, but I don't care. It's not a big deal. I'm pretty sure. I think you can, if you want to still go back and watch the movie and enjoy what there is to enjoy about it, you can. It's not, the spoiler that I'm giving here is not really all that crucial to your enjoyment or lack thereof of the movie. But then it goes on for way too long, and that's something that I think is really strange about the Apatow comedy movies is they're all really long. Like they're like some of them are 2 hours or 2 hours plus. This particular one, Funny People, was 2.5 hours long. Who ever heard of a comedy that's 2.5 hours in length? It just seems um, I'm not sure what the mentality is there. I'm not sure what the the aesthetic choice was, because generally speaking, comedy movies need to be short. 90 minutes, maybe 95 minutes, or 100 minutes, absolute tops. You don't want to have a long comedy movie. It just it wears out its welcome if you do that. The audience gets restless because the jokes start to go a little stale, or they start to there for all of these movies, all of the ones that I'm talking about, you feel the length of time from beginning to end. Now there are a lot of funny moments still, but at the same time, it just these movies are way too long. Now another thing I will say about Funny People, there are like jokes about penis size. There's like the main character makes a joke at the expense of his young apprentices. The guy he's hired, or he's brought on, he's taken pity on, has hired to help him out, writing some jokes to connect with younger audiences or something. There's this proclivity to comment on his likely penis size, and like asks him how big his feet are, what size his shoes are, and when he says 11 and a half, and he says, "Oh, I gotta see your penis now." Like, what? What in the world is going on here? And there are a lot. I mean, this really intrudes in the story. There are a lot of jokes like that where, uh, one character makes reference to another's penis, and wanting to see his penis, or commenting on the likely size of it. One of the jokes that he ends up using on stage involves a molestation innuendo, where he makes a joke about how his father hated him, so he named both him and the dog Jack, and then so the dad would say, "You know what, Jack, you're such a good boy. I really love you." And he would say, "Thanks, Dad. I was talking to the dog." "Oh, Jack, you've got so many great qualities. Thank you, Dad." "No, I was talking to the dog." But then the dad says, "I've spread some peanut butter on my crotch, and I want you to lick it off." "Now that was I mean you now, son, Jack." And that's the punchline of the joke. It's like, this is really weird. Like, why is there this undercurrent here? I just can't help um, but notice. And some may say it's a proclivity of of a certain ethnicity's humor. And that that movie, I've got to say, is pretty stocked to the brim with characters who are of that particular ethnicity. Anyhow, how should I conclude all of this? I think that, looking back now, the Apatow movies, and some of the other comedy movies of the period, the comedy franchises of the period, the comedy directors who worked at around that time. Looking at that era of film, it really is looking at a whole different world. You watch these movies now on Netflix and you think to yourself, my God, this would never get made today. Maybe it'll get made, tomorrow, not literally tomorrow, but maybe in a few years they'll start to make movies like this again after uh, this period of cultural stagnation and artistic repression has finally ceased. Is that man carrying a gun? What is that? I don't think it's a gun. I think it's just an umbrella. It's strange though. It's not raining outside. I don't know if you hear about a big shooting that happened at the mall today in Savannah. Then I might have seen the perpetrator just now. But anyway, um, collecting my thoughts. It's interesting that this era of films happened, and it's interesting that it happened when it happened. And it's interesting that what brought it to an end was the rise of Trump. What brought it to an end was the rise of nationalist politics. What brought it to an end was the rise of a finally potent force. However potent Trump was, I don't know, but a a force within the culture which really was aware of so many things that were deeply wrong with the culture and wanted to take a wrecking ball to it and wanted to expose a lot of it. It seemed like that set off this alarmist, oh my God, fascism is coming back, kind of perspective that made a lot of these same comedian or comic directors just lose their sense of humor totally, and hence, and we're still living in that same era today. It's interesting to, like I say, to watch these movies now. I still don't know what to make of the weird, bizarre 2 hour plus running length. I don't think the Farrelly brothers did that. I don't think the director of the Hangover movies, who later directed Joker, whose name I can't recall, Todd Phillips, there it is. Todd Phillips movies were never that long, but they all had in common this raunchy, anarchic kind of brand of comedy that also mixed in, I think, this vision of morality that that is unexpected, and that is seen most readily in the 40-Year-Old Virgin, I believe, but also manifests itself in some of the other films as well. So those are my thoughts on the Apatow years. Let me know your thoughts below, and thanks for watching.